understand yourself and others and love your pets, yeah.
Good citizens of the earth. Welcome back. What's this, like our second episode ever? I mean, I feel like I'm a pro already. How you guys doing out there? How's life treating you? It's been crazy these past few years. COVID, layoffs, economy, everything going on. You got banks collapsing. This is a time to have high emotional intelligence so you can move through this period and grow through it. When you look at billionaires amaze me. Now, obviously, attaining that amount of wealth is a lot that entails. I mean, even very successful people don't get to that level. But what you see is then during bad times is when they flourish. Now, of course, they have the capital to do it, but that should give us an idea of we should flourish during bad times. When the water level is high, or low, that's probably the best time to be out there obtaining your fulfillment and your goals. But a lot of times we find ourselves in stressful times and stressful periods of history. When it's going bad, our mentals are bad, and we don't take advantage of the low water, of the low level that we can wade through a little easier if we had high emotional intelligence and we wasn't letting the environment beat us down. So let's dig in, people. I hope you're well. So today, we're going to dive into the first pillar of emotional intelligence. And for these first few episodes, that's what I really want to dig into so that we understand and appreciate what emotional intelligence is. And we don't see it as a negative or even a positive. We see it as a neutral. And that's a huge part of emotional intelligence, the neutral position in your life. So look, let's go into it. The first piece of emotional intelligence, the first pillar out of the 5, if you remember, if you're doing some self-reflection at home and trying to get a hold of it, what it means, it's self-awareness. Say it to yourself 5 times. Self-awareness, 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 self-awareness. It's important. And self-awareness doesn't happen just because you're in a place. Self-awareness happens because you're paying attention to it. It's something you're focused on. You're always paying attention to yourself. I give you a little story of something I do to always keep myself in the moment, because the moments are important to me. We'll get a football example again, and I always throw football examples out because it's sailing in my life and it's really made me who I am. But self-awareness truly is about the moment. You don't have a lot of moments in life. I don't know if there's any stats out there about how many moments you get in life as a child to adolescent to adult to a senior, elderly person. But I would suspect that out of those thousands of days and hours that we live through in an average American, 79 years old is the average length of an American's life. How many moments do you have to ascend to the next level of a fulfillment or whatever it may be? It's not many. A lot of life is practice, in my opinion. That's the way I see it. So if I'm always doing things that keep me emotionally intelligent, those moments will always meet me. I don't have to meet the moment. The moments meet me because I'm always prepared. And we say that all of our life. That's one of those sayings that people say is don't have to get ready when you are ready or something. And those cliches bother me because people don't really do that. It's just something they say. And words are free. Words are free. I can say whatever I want right now, and it's free. Actions cost money, cost time, cost effort, cost stress. Actions and words, 2 different things. And unfortunately, a lot of us live in the word space. We do everything for free over here. But these actions over here cost something. And that's where you start to understand who people are that are around you and if they're going to stick it out to win. One of the things I do to always remain self-aware, and it drives my wife crazy, and people that know me, it might drive them crazy, but I'm always interacting with people, strangers on the elevator. Literally, you can have a Confederate flag hat on, and you can see why I would be bothered by that. And I'm going to talk to you on the elevator. Not to be funny, not to bother you. I'm practicing communicating. You see, as an emotional intelligence coach and as an entrepreneur that's trying to grow my business and get new customers and build relationships with investors and other stakeholders, it's important to me to be able to communicate to anybody, to be able to go to the White House and speak to the president intelligently and influentially, and then go down to the local neighborhood and hang out on the corner if I need to, and not change. Authenticity is what matters. And that's what self-awareness is really about, being the authentic you. When you can be yourself in any environment, even when you're uncomfortable, that's when you really start to make headway in life and you become a leader and people start going the direction you uh, want them to. And not in a selfish way, but in a way that they see that you understand how to move through life properly, right? Self-awareness is authenticity. And I mess with people all the time. I like to joke, I like to laugh, and it's a piece of that. There's also an emotional intelligence that I can smile on a bad day because I made you smile, right? Other people pull me out of my bad days. People probably think I don't have bad days. I do. I just don't let them. I don't wear them, right? I try to be consistent in that, and not in a robotic way. But that's part of self-awareness, is not allowing yourself to be pulled either way emotionally, too high or too low. I joke with people. I rib people. I'm literally sitting in a car at the stoplight and somebody's walking down the sidewalk and I yell out the window and make them laugh. Now, how do I do that? Because I've practiced it all my life. And it's a meaning to that, because when that moment comes, when I have a business deal I need to get done, and the room is full of people that I don't look like or feel like or know, I can still influence the room because I've communicated with that type of person before in the airport, on the plane, or walking and get something to eat one day, on the sidewalk at the stoplight. Interact with people, look up. Authenticity starts with knowing who you are and how other people feel about you. Not if other people like you, not if other people agree with you. How do other people feel about you? That's self-awareness, right? So that authentic piece that I do, and I bother and joke with everybody, and my wife drives her crazy, and she like spends half her time like behind me, like, he's joking. Because I'll say something and look real serious and just try to get a reaction, but I'm literally practicing because self-awareness is important to me. So let's dig into self-awareness as we move through this episode. What we're gonna do first here is this: it's self. Everything is a list, and if you're taking notes, I'm not a note taker, but if you are, this is the first thing we need to grab about self-awareness. One is, what am I feeling? And it can be in any situation: relationships, career, by yourself, stressful situations, situations that you love being a part of, love being in. Self-awareness, you need to start to quantify that everywhere in all of the interactions you do. Now, some of them, when you go to work and you see the same people every day and you have the same meetings and the same routine, that's an easy self-aware place. But you can also get off track there because your emotions are heavily involved in something that you're familiar with, right? But in general, you always need to take stock of how you're feeling. And again, not in a robotic way. It needs to become natural. You just need to understand yourself and start to pay attention to it. This isn't something that's a robot. This is something that you have to intently, deliberately do consistently so you continue to show up in your moments. Second part of it, after what am I feeling, is what am I thinking? Thoughts. How powerful are our thoughts? When you really break it down and you dig into people's thoughts, I can literally figure out the fulfillment that somebody has in their own life by just digging into their thoughts, the way they talk, the things they say, the words, the way they enunciate, the habits they have in their speech, the ums and the ahs, and well, you know, and the tone of the voice. I can start to understand not necessarily how successful they are or smart, but I can tell where they are from a position of how much they appreciate themselves, and authentically how they feel about themselves and present themselves, simply by understanding how I feel and what I am thinking. Your thoughts will tell your future, because your brain is literally a computer. See, we get our heart and our brain mixed up often. Your brain is there to control your body, make you breathe without thinking, make your heart beat without you doing it. Your brain is there like a hard drive on your computer. It's telling your body what to do, but your brain should not think for you. It's simply a database. It's a controller. But when you start letting your brain think for you, it's abstract. It stores information. It's not what should be emotionally carrying you through your life. That's a heart issue, but we won't talk about that. Authenticity starts with, what am I feeling? What am I thinking? Guard your thoughts. You start having negative thoughts, you should have a mechanism that you've practiced to get it out of that negativity. It's important because that negative thought will take you to a negative example, and that negative example will become your life, right? And then the third piece of it is, what am I doing? So it's, what am I feeling? What am I doing? Excuse me, what am I thinking? And then what am I doing in that particular space that now I know how I feel and what I'm thinking? My behavior is part of that, right? So self-awareness takes you into self-management, takes you into behavior, right? So it's, what am I feeling? What am I thinking? And what am I doing? Right? I got a story about that, but I'm gonna come back to it because there's some things we need to get through. And I don't want to hold you guys too long and bore you. So now that we know the 3 buckets of self-awareness, which is, what am I feeling? What am I thinking? And what am I doing? Then you get into figuring out how those apply to you. And the way you do that is 3 more things within that. It's your triggers and how do I react to them. So what triggers you? A trigger for me, because I'm a nerd and I do like to understand. I'm a learner. I always want to learn. I read maps. And then we go to another country or to another city, and my wife wonders how I know how to get around because I literally studied the map before I got there. And it's interesting to me. But that part of always learning is important to emotional intelligence because it keeps you in a place where you're always learning yourself and other people. So what triggers you? I know when somebody treats me like I'm stupid or treats me like I don't understand something, you really get the bad side of me, right? I'm a pretty calm, tame, friendly person. But as you know, with calm, tame, friendly people, once you push them too far, then they're the worst, right? And I don't like to be handled. I don't like to be like, I'm always thinking and listening. And anytime I feel like somebody's handling me or blowing smoke, right? That's a trigger for me. So I've had to, especially in business and in corporate situations, really guard myself around certain leaders who think that they're whatever, farther ahead or no more, or just disrespectful. That's something that I've always had to watch myself with so that I remain in a place that I can grow and not stunt my growth, right? What are your triggers? If you know it's a trigger, then you can start to behave the way that you should in that situation, no matter what that trigger is. Because see, what you'll find is triggers have a power over you that will ruin your life. Again, I go back to how do people feel about you is a big part of self-awareness. If you have triggers that cause you to act outside of yourself, what happens when that emotion gets involved? Sometimes you don't even know what you're doing that's affecting other people around you, and they're making decisions about your life, about your ascent, about your next promotion. So the trigger should not be so ego to you that you have to let it out, right? It becomes a point and your emotional intelligence lets you know that it's probably not a good idea for me to do this here because I need to get through this moment so that I can get to where I need to be. So the trigger becomes less important. You find people are so proud that they shoot themselves in the foot because they just have to let the person know that they disrespected them, or they have to let them know this. But does it matter? If you're going to get to where you need to be and that person's still there when you leave, who cares? That's a big part of self-awareness, is knowing what is going to put you in a bad position and feeling it as you go through it and behaving the opposite. You win games like that. The second piece is, how do others really perceive me? And I said this a couple times already, but it really matters. Not in a way that you have to relegate yourself to being who they want you to be, or not being authentically you, or agreeing with them just to make them feel comfortable. You see, this is a time that we live in that and I'll say this and I may step on toes, but sorry. We live in a time that ignorant people are requiring intelligent people to keep their mouth shut to make the ignorant people feel comfortable. I'll say that in another way. Intelligent people are having to be quiet in these days to make ignorant people feel okay. No more. That's not emotionally intelligent. I'm not here to make you feel comfortable. I'm not here to be comfortable. I'm here to get things done, not transactionally, but in a way that everybody wins and that everybody is satisfied. And I am not here to make somebody that is not here to do the same comfortable. Self-awareness and how do others perceive you? I would dare say if I die today, I am confident that the people at my funeral would say some very simple things about me. I don't know everything they would say, and believe me, I'm not perfect. As a matter of fact, I'm far from it. Got a lot of flaws, but I know people would say I treat people right. I never stole anything, and I never ever took advantage of anybody. Now, it's things that I did that ain't great and I don't brag about, but those three things are who I am. I'm consistently that person. That's what I know and what I would expect people to say about me. Now, would you find somebody to say that he should do this or he should interact more? All yeah, not perfect, and nobody is. But I consistently know the things people would say about me, negative and positive. I can be a little scatterbrained. I'm not a planner. I can seem a little unprepared. That's who I am, and I can exist in that, but I know that so I can overcome those things because I know who I am. How do others perceive you? Not to change you to who they want you to be, but so you don't shoot yourself in the foot in front of them. It is very important to know how they perceive you because you have blind spots, right? We'll talk about the blind spots in a second. And the last piece of it is how are your tendencies going to affect your future? If you watched the first episode or if you know anything about emotional intelligence, this is a very important point. How does your behavior, not your emotions, because people don't know how you feel until you show them. So, how do your emotions stunt your growth or contribute to your growth? Do people want to help you? Do people want to see you do well? Or are people waiting to say no to you? Are people waiting for you to need them so they can turn their back? And if that's the case, one way or the other, why? Why? So let's dig into this because this is probably the most important point before we go into ways to improve your self-awareness. How do your tendencies affect your future? I know some very intelligent people. I'll start here. You'll find that people tend to be people that experience trauma in their life, a lot of times will stop maturing at that point, right? If you had some trauma as a 13-year-old, emotionally, at even 40, 50 years old, you're still 13 in a lot of ways, unless you go and address that, right? If you have some trauma at 20 years old and now you're 60, yeah, I promise you, if you haven't addressed that, you're still 20 years old at 60, and it shows. You see, I've met some very smart people that have a hard time finding fulfillment in life and think that God's not blessing them or whatever it may be, whatever you believe in, and it really comes down to their behavior because they have unchecked emotions. So many people are stunted by their emotions that they don't show up when they should, that the pressure actually causes them to get sick and not go, that they find fault and conflict in order to derail themselves. I've seen people that find themselves in the proper place all the time because they are talented enough to be there, but in the moment they completely crumble. That's what emotional intelligence is. So what tendencies do you have? Tendencies as far as what do you consistently do that is affecting your future, good or bad? You should know on both sides. I know things that I do that are affecting my future in a great way, but I also know that I'm not a great networker. I'm a bit of I would call myself a introverted extrovert or extroverted introvert. Yeah. I show up and I'm a sales rep. I was an athlete. I like to speak. I like to coach. I like people, but I also like my time of just doing nothing. Right. Um, and within that, I know that tendency hurts me when it comes to networking and connecting with people. And I know connection is so important. So that's something that I always have to push myself to do. Some of the most triumphant moments of my life is doing something that I literally try my best to get out of. Right. So that's a tendency that's going to hurt me. But I also know that my tenacity, the way I treat people, the way I show up in moments, the different things is absolutely is people somewhere that's helping me, and I don't even know it, right? So take stock of those things so that you don't find yourself in situations that should have went a different way, but you fell over your own hurdle, right? So what I want to do here, we got 10, 15 minutes left. Um, I normally tell a story, and I've kind of done that. I'll tell a quick one here that kind of goes into self-awareness and over into self-management. But I'm gonna stop at the self-awareness, and then from there I have 10 ways. And every single when people give you lists, it's not for you to take every single one and try to apply it. Find the ones that you need to work on and apply those. Right. Um, my senior year in college, we played UVA, University of Virginia, our first game. I went to University of Richmond. So it was an in-state game. Obviously, University of Richmond, it was 1AA and Division One at the time. University of Richmond was Division One AA, where I played, and University of Virginia was Division One, right? And really, when you look at it, they just have a larger roster and more talented players than a 1AA and vice versa as you go down the line. But we got out there and we competed. We played them often. That was our first game of the year. It was my senior year. My little cousin, Branson, at the time, this was 20-something years ago when I was in college. He had a rare lung disease and it took his life over time. That was the first death in my family that I experienced as you know. Before that, I was too young to really know, but as an adult, that was the first one. And that first game of the year, my family came to all my games in college as they did in high school, and his mother was coming, and she was going to bring a picture of him, and I was going to put it on my shoulder pads, right? And as we got closer to the game, they wasn't there yet. They got there late. So literally about 5 minutes before we were about to run out the tunnel, my cousin shows up with the picture of Branson, and the trainer tapes it on me, and I lost it emotionally. I was already ready to go as my senior year. I worked all my life for this moment, right? And I ran out that tunnel so emotionally everywhere that I threw up running out. And long story short, I don't even remember the first half of the game. And I played. And I remember looking at the film of the grades as you go back and look, because everything in football is graded. The eye in the sky doesn't lie. Literally, that's football life. Everything's graded. Everything's on camera. And we went back and looked at that film. I was looking at these. And normally, I can still think back on plays I made in high school like it's a flashbulb moment. But I was looking at these plays like a week later, and I didn't even remember doing this stuff in the first half. And I didn't have a bad first half. I just don't remember any of it. And it was because I was emotionally spent. See, football is a game of controlled chaos. Literally, you're running around hitting people, hurting each other, getting knocked out, everything. And you have to be in control, because I had to look over at the sideline and get the signal. I had to tell the signal. I had to read what's going on and check the play. I had to make sure I'm in the right spot. Like, it's a lot going on out there when you're leading the signal call on defense and playing your position. And I don't remember any of it. I did it, but why? So two things are present here. One is great emotional intelligence, and one is terrible emotional intelligence. I was able to do what I was supposed to do without even thinking about it, because I have done it a million times in practice, in summer, in camp, going over plays in my head, watching film. I have done the work. So I can still show up in the moment, even when I'm not even present in the moment. Imagine that. Emotional intelligence is repetition, is consistency. Remember that. But on the flip side of that, even while I'm displaying superb emotional intelligence, displaying terrible emotional intelligence, because I didn't know where I was at, and I didn't know what I was doing. And thank God I had done it enough to do it right, but I don't remember any of it. I practiced and prepared myself from the time I was 6 years old to a senior in college for that moment, the first game of my senior year, and people are watching and scouts are there and all of these things, and I'm not even present because I let my emotions boil over in a game that requires you to knock people around. Imagine that. Controlled chaos even then. So second half, I remember, and I caught my breath and I felt better, and I did better. But that is a story for me that I absolutely had. My self-awareness was out of whack. I allowed myself to let the moment overwhelm me, and I paid for it. I still was able to perform in a way that I didn't screw up, but I didn't perform the way I prepared to perform because I wasn't there. My emotions were out of whack. Boom. Self-awareness. I should have known at that moment of that picture and my little cousin, who I loved and who was the first person important in my life to pass away at that point, and I should have known that was going to get me. It was a reason I was putting it on my chest, right? For the passion, for what he meant to me, for the love. I should have known. I should have been aware enough. I should have understood myself enough that that was going to get to me and I should have been prepared for it and I wasn't. But that was a moment of learning, and emotional intelligence is about learning. Boom. I'm sure that you guys can think of moments in your life that you want it back. Well, let's stop wanting them back and make sure that we do it right when we're there, right? So to wrap this up, let's think about 10 strategies to help you become more self-aware. And I'll go through these quickly. Again, when I get lists like this, I don't try to do every one of them. I find one or two or three and try to figure out how I get better at that. And then the other ones fall into place because you're already decent at that. One is comfort zone. Let go, forget about, stop even tracing a comfort zone around yourself. Nothing fruitful happens in a comfort zone. As a matter of fact, in a comfort zone, even concentrating on your self-awareness can be deadly, because guess what happens when you're ultra self-aware and you're always comfortable is you become isolated. You isolate yourself. So even trying to improve your self-awareness will isolate you if you're sitting in that comfort zone and it's comfortable. But guess what? Most people that are comfortable are unfulfilled, unhappy, looking for something different, looking for what they don't have. They're comfortable. That ain't how it works. Even a forest fire, we see it as disaster as humans. Oh my God, it's a forest fire. It's going to burn our house down. It's going to kill people. But do you know it's trees like the redwood, one of the biggest trees on earth, the sequoia, one of the biggest trees on earth? They have these little seeds, these huge 10,000-year-old trees have these little seeds that don't break open until a forest fire comes and heats them up and they pop open. The forest, the trees, need the fire. We see it as disaster. God intended it to open those little seeds of the biggest trees on earth that wouldn't have been that big and grow that tall and been here that long if a fire didn't come through and burn everything up and start the ashes becoming fertilizer for these new seeds that popped open and now imagine that. So life is about being uncomfortable. We're not masochists. We don't want to hurt ourselves. I'm not looking for a challenge, but I'm absolutely not avoiding it. As a matter of fact, everything I want is on the other side of the challenge. See, faith is a currency. Faith is a currency. I spend faith every day because I built it up. You see, yeah, we got money, dollars and quarters and debit cards and all these things. We can use our phone to pay these days, but that's all worthless if you can't show up in the moment and garner those things to use, right? It's about the moment, and faith is currency. Get out of your comfort zone. That's an important one for a lot of people. I've seen people that have been 10 million years far ahead of where they are if they were just willing to be uncomfortable. Not for a day, not for a night, but until it changed. Be uncomfortable. That's what growth is. The redwood had to burn up so its seeds could live. Second one is triggers. Know your triggers. We talked about this. Know what triggers you. Not so that you can avoid your triggers, so that you can conquer them. Because a lot of times right on the other side of your trigger is what you want. But you can't do it because I can't deal with them. Okay, well, you'll never get your fulfillment. Don't judge your feelings. You know, I've seen a lot of people, especially in coaching, emotional intelligence, is people are ashamed of how they feel in certain situations, but you should never feel ashamed of how you feel. That's how you feel. Let's dig into that and make sure that you're behaving right, right? We're not going to stay on that one long. That's simple. Don't judge how you feel. Figure out why you feel that way. No decisions in a bad mood. Now, this is important. When I'm going to say this, the one after that, right after, no decisions in a bad mood and no decisions in a good mood. What are you talking about? That makes no sense. So I can't think. Life is about being neutral. Number one thing I've learned, that football game when I blew my whole first half, I was too high. I can't even, when you win, you want that all the time. And the dangerous part about always needing to win and always needing to hear people tell you you're great and always needing hugs and affection and people around you and everybody loves you is that you can't achieve that all the time. So guess what wanting to be high all the time will do to you? Not highs and drugs, but high emotionally, always needing to feel jittery and everything is going great and positive and people love me. You can't achieve that 24/7. So guess what that'll do? It'll throw you into a deeper low. You will see people that are always needing to be high. A lot of times they never are. You see people that are always excitable that a lot of times are always very low because they can't find the excitement, right? But you also don't want to be in the low because that's obvious. Negativity kills you. Neutral. I, as a sales rep, will get these big deals, and I'm going to wrap this up as I run out of time, but I would get these big deals, and it would take years to get them. I would start, and 4 years later, we'd finally get the deal, and it's the biggest deal I've ever gotten, and it was fun, and my wife would be like, we got to celebrate, and it was hard for me to do that. Now, she was right. I needed to go celebrate it, but not long term. What would happen to me is that I would make myself come back to the middle. I have a bad day, I would make myself come back to the middle because it's always a tomorrow. It's always a next moment. And you can't do things when you're always on one pole or the other. Best decisions are made. Consistency happens in the middle, okay? All right, so let's move on through these really quickly. We don't make decisions on either end. Get back to the middle before you make important decisions, right? Next one is take a high-level view. Back away from the situation. You know, there's people I've been mad at that I would back away and I would see like kind of take me out of it and just think about it a little bit, and things would look a little different. Always take a high-level view. Number 8 is always revisit your values. I've seen things, especially now with all the political things going on and how polarized society is, and I will start thinking a certain way because it frustrates me, and I got to return back to my values. I don't want to see that happen to somebody. It's not my values. Emotions will take you out of your values and make you do something you shouldn't. Always revisit them and make sure you are, who you say you are. Number 9 is always quantify how you feel under stress. Stressful moments and understanding what that means in the stressful moment won't change stressful moments. It'll just make sure you're successful in those stressful moments. And number 10, always ask for feedback from the people that know you, and ask them for real feedback, not rosy feedback. Don't ask them for feedback just to say you did great. Ask them for feedback so that they can identify your blind spots, because it's a blind spot for a reason. You can't see it. Other people can. The mirror on the truck says, don't, and if I'm making a right turn, I can't see you. It's a blind spot. Don't step into it. But he's telling you to watch his blind spot. He can't see his blind spot. So ask other people, how did I do? What do you think? What would you do? Ask about how they feel and what they think and what they saw, not to change you just to change you, so that you know what your blind spots are, so that you don't have to worry about the car you can't see when you're making a wide right turn, because you know that's a blind spot and you don't put yourself in that position, all right? So that's the first pillar of emotional intelligence, the first bucket, self-awareness is the most important. You can't go to the other ones until you know you. We'll jump into self-management and understanding others. Another part of self-awareness, and we'll talk about this next episode, is knowing others. I, as a sales rep, I, as an entrepreneur, do a great job of being able to discern the personality of the person I'm talking to simply because I know myself well enough and other people's emotions well enough that I know who I'm talking to sometimes without them even saying anything. And that's important for me as I'm a sales rep, as I'm an influencer, as I'm a CEO and I'm growing a vision and other people have to see my vision and get behind it. I have to be able to know who I'm talking to so that I can break it down to them, not in a manipulative way, but in a way that they understand it. I'm so excited about this. Emotional intelligence is something I'm passionate about. If some of y'all can come along with me and get better at it as well, we'll be in a better place. Good to see you guys, good citizens of the earth. Go attack your day, attack your week, and start paying attention to yourself. Look up. Peace.
About life now, turn on the lights now. The Emotional Pet Guy Podcast, yeah. Talking about life now, turn on the lights now.